Aprendimos a quererte desde la histórica altura donde el sol de tu bravura le puso cerco a la muerte.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
Yo, I come from me in the stand. I'm in the field and you just sit in the stands. Take that bass out your voice. If you ain't got no gun in your hand, I do what I want. And you don't even do what you can, you do what you told. I got no love for my foes that can mimic my delivery and copy my prose. But what they can't comprehend is how I stick to this code. It's either in you or not. It's not the kicks and the clothes. They ain't cut from the same cloth, can't come from the same loom. Fit in similar shapes or even sit in the same room. Confusing authenticity with part of the costume. I'm teaching gifted children, you can't come in this classroom.
Dare to struggle, dare to win.
Oh,
Mute. My bad. Welcome back. The Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win. How you doing? What's going on?
nothing much. Just me some B12 because I need energy to get through the next few weeks. So, had a very tired day. So, just trying to.
Brother Yusef will be joining us directly, and also Steff Reed will be here. You're watching Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, episode 31, which is a CMB podcast according to CMB Politics, community movement builders. A couple of people from Atlanta, me and Cherie, and Yusef is obviously from Detroit. And we're here on Black Liberation Media, where a bunch of politicized people are in the chats who watch and rewatch. So make sure you copy and paste this link to the nearest person who probably have some questions and conversations around Christianity, liberation theology, and all these other things, prayer, all those things. But before we get into that, I'm pretty sure we got some other conversations. So, Cherie, what's been going on and what you got for us today?
Well, Yusef shared in the chat this comment that Umar said that a lot of people were kind of shocked about when it came to like a response to Charlie Kirk. And yeah, I know we've already had a lot of talk about the Charlie Kirk stuff. But yeah, we were just talking about that in our chat for the podcast. So we thought we'd, talk a little bit about it here. Which kind of reminds me of the talk yesterday that we had in our all day kind of stream thing. I ended up talking about back when I was in a cult, and sharing my cult life when I was in a cult for a year. So yeah, it's just been some interesting topics about religion and how it can be applied for liberation, and how most of the times it's not. But yeah, I don't know if you want to share what Umar said. But
yeah, so I think I saw it. I never really verified if he said it, but I think everybody was saying he did. But the quote, Umar says, while I don't agree with Mr. Kirk's rhetoric and consider him to be an anti-Black bigot, I will never rejoice at the loss of life of anyone who hasn't directly participated in the unaliving of a member of the Black community. The Black African race. I am ashamed to see members of my community celebrating this situation. I will never ask you to mourn the loss of an enemy of our race, but to celebrate an unaliving is completely unacceptable. We know all too well that the greatest recipients of political assassination in this country have been our own people. Stop laughing at the misfortunes of others and get prepared. Political assassinations have returned to the United States. I think he is saying, "Welcome, Yusef. Peace."
What up, though?
We were just reading this quote before we get into conversations in response to it. I know you saw the post and shared it in our chat, but yeah, what was thoughts that came up when you heard Dr. Fubar, as Diallo call him, but Dr. Umar share his whatever that was. I don't even know what that was and why.
I mean, for me, honestly, it's less about Umar. I think it's the opportunity to just get into it. I mean, it's a topic, right? It's a discussion. So how do we steer the topic, steer the discussion? I mean, the subplot of where people in their ideological stance, like, I mean, Umar, I think, represents the back and forth flip flopping. I think a lot of us do. I mean, personally, I don't think nobody's out here wishing anybody to get killed. I think that's just in general. But the nature of political struggle, nature of political dynamics, right? I think this is a part of an ideological clarity that could help shape things. Because I mean, people get caught up in distractions, get caught up in trends, and I mean, really, I mean, people who think that really have political consciousness and shit, getting into some real backward shit.
Yeah.
So I was throwing that out there.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find out where they were celebrating because I seen way more people talking about don't celebrate than I actually see people celebrating. I live in Atlanta, so I was looking for the Kirk Pop That Ass party all last weekend. I ain't seen not one of them. I ain't seen not one celebration. So I'm just kind of like, when people talk about celebrating a death, I think people need to be really specific on what that actually means. You know, for one, but I saw way more people talking about I saw way more people talking about like, oh, don't celebrate, or I'm disgusted when people celebrate it, and like not as much people discuss with the actual racism, bigotry, everything else that, you know, that man stood for and put out. And so it's just kind of like, yeah, it's always interesting. And then, you know, just kind of how people want to honor the death. And it's just kind of like, you're going to talk about, like, are we supposed to ignore? I'm glad y'all get my humor in the comments. I'm like, because Yusef and Geechee just blame. I'm like, I really thought that was a good one, but okay. Y'all be hating on my humor. But yeah.
Charlie Kirk and twerking ass.
I didn't see not one. And I was looking for it. But yeah, but people, like I said, for the most part, were jumping to like defend that as opposed to like the actual stuff that he stood for. And then you see a lot of people are revealed, because it's not too long ago where people were saying, oh, Candace Owens makes a lot of sense to me. I align with Candace Owens. And you look at how close she was to Charlie. So you literally have people looking at some of the things that Charlie is saying and not even looking at it as racist and ignorant and bigoted or any of that, because it's so similar to the stuff that Candace Owens was saying. So you have just straight up denial.
Yeah, so I actually, other than the things on the feed that was, you know, that I couldn't avoid, but I have been trying to avoid most conversations. I probably saw some people that I know from home not celebrate, but definitely convince other people not to celebrate. But I immediately think of like when the young brother was murdered on the train by that whoever that person was. I do remember
what train murder.
Is it Jordan? His name Jordan.
Ely.
Yeah.
Is this recent?
Nah, like a couple years ago.
That's not the one that got in New York City.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just Paul. You know, a conservative guy They just hired him.
Yeah. But to that point though, I saw people talking about how he defended people, he protected her, he was a whatever. And it's like, again, if that person can be murdered and people can say, you know, oh, this person was protecting or whatever, like, I just think that's one conversation. And another conversation is like the U.S. celebrates murdering Gaddafi and Bin Laden and whoever else, and everybody's cheering on those political deaths. So I'm like, I don't really like have time for Black folks who know that popular people And not only popular because of the dumb shit they're saying, but they also pop like they're getting brought to these campuses. It's not like I remember one time I was about to go to James Madison because a black student group was going to bring me there, and then I think maybe the administration looked at my shit and they was like, "Nah, he can't come." So, but they brought. I know I never was saying anything like Charlie Kirk, but the universities and the student groups or whatever, even if they brought him there to debate, they still brought him and gave him a platform. And on that platform, you could say particular things that make people feel a type of way. So they talk about stochastic terrorism. I know they say that that's a radical left-leaning tactic to justify violence, but the reality is people can, whether they're on one side of the fight for white supremacy or white power, the Republicans or the Democrats or whoever, they don't even like each other. They'll shoot and kill and fight each other. And so I just don't think that people are necessarily celebrating as opposed to saying like, well, white on white violence is a thing, right? I mean, and so, yeah, I know Umar is probably trying his best to stay relevant, especially in these times, but I really have never saw anybody celebrating anything. I saw people posting like they do with any other type of news or popular story. But I know your joke landed better in places, but the reality, I didn't see any yes, like we won, type shit. So
I think on my news feed, I was seeing more of a like a back and forth between certain folks. Like I don't know where it got the origin, because you have folks who's like, "Hey, I'm sorry," or just showing paying respect, for the dead, whatever, and then that or response was like, "How the hell you paying homage to an idiot like that? That motherfucker should die." And I think I was assuming like that's what the morph and the origin of all this shit here. And I think Umar, to your point, just trying to stay relevant and shit. Topic. Obviously he it's interesting. Like Farrakhan, right? When Farrakhan chastises, what's his name? They kicked out the nation. That was right up under his number 2.
Khalid.
Yeah, he kicked Khalid and all death to Jews, whatever. Same thing with Malcolm. Like the nation is always, it's been part of their rhetoric to say some of the most outlandish shit, but then all of a sudden now you want to protect your image and shit, and so.
Yeah, and then I think it just even shows further how out of touch Umar is, because for him to just be like, "Oh, political death has just been brought back to America," just kind of like, where were you when the young brother was killed during the Cop City movement and everything? It's just like, so what do you? I mean, and then that's just one example, but there's so much political death all the time, if you want to be honest, when it when it comes to that. So I just feel like him just acting like it's this new thing. But I feel like there were several people on my timeline, and that's what, and I feel like I made a post being like, yo, like people are dying like every day, y'all, like in Palestine and Congo, like there's so much political death in this world, and it's insane to center this white guy and feeling sad for his family, because it's like at the end of the day, the KKK have family, they have wives, and then you can't marry a person and not somewhat co-sign their politics, so I just think that there was just a lot of things, but yeah, I think it just really got me thinking deep about like all the different ties in society that kind of, and just it's liberalism, it's white Christian nationalism, it's all these things that just tie to like this moment of people being very like, trying to show like a moral compass in a situation like this, but not actual violence that is taking place on actual innocent people, all around. And for people to say it's just a difference of opinion and not acting like he didn't have a whole organization. The man was worth $12 million, had a whole organization that actually pushed policy. So it's like, it's not like he's just saying these things. He's actually, his organization is about putting those people in office, getting people to vote for them. Like, that's why they did all of that stuff, when it comes to the office and, him getting flown and all, all the stuff they did with his funeral, like, because he was a political figure. Like, it's not like just a difference of opinion. So it's just like, yeah.
Margaret Kimberly called him a mouthpiece for the White House, and I'm pretty sure other people said that. But I mean, other than the fact that he actually says his death and the type of death he had is worth it, like I don't even know why people are still like having like long conversation, but like that's the thing he wanted and that's the thing he suggested. But kind of what you were saying about he don't create these ideas, but he perpetuate these ideas, and he has a large platform to not only perpetuate the ideas but realize them into policy that actually kill people, right? And so, even when he like talked shit about Martin Luther King, there are times who people can get on national television or national radio and say a particular thing, and it will embolden particular people to try to harm people. So again, however people feel about stochastic terrorism or not, it's like this Umar saying directly, right? We say directly in a minute in Gullah, but if you don't directly cause unaliving of black bodies, it's wild as shit, because like presidents and bosses and mob bosses, it's kind of like he can hire you to get a hit on somebody, and Umar was like, well, I ain't gonna give him the threat or whatever the case may be. So I don't really know what this person Umar, who's falling into irrelevancy at some point, I don't know how he would articulate that this white man who encourages and celebrates the death of black and brown people who do not obey the white power structure, the same power structure that Umar is trying to, who can claim that he calls an enemy, is just weird to me. So yeah, he needs to do something else with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's deep, but it's not that deep. The obvious, I don't think he even made a statement in relationship to him losing his school, his building recently. So it shows you the political opportunist, and it's not the first time that he's. I mean, you look at the shows that he's been going on, the Breakfast Club. He kind of tones it down, tends to throw an olive branch. Hey, you open the donate towards me. You're not a coon. You're not a Negro. And these are. I mean, I would even entertain it, because the folks who are not studying, they study him because they're too lazy to want to do it themselves. So they'll just and he's too lazy to really be active. And so they feed off each other and shit, and by creating this discourse through this motherfucker.
Yeah. I think sorry, I was trying to read what you put up. But I think when it comes to him, I think and I don't know, even like, because I still feel like it seems very like, even though his politics were never strong or really stood in any way, like I said, it's just odd that he would even like, it's like you could have just not said anything at all. So it's just like, what really is your intentions by like actually making a full statement with something like this? And then people being like, and then now with, these murders that have happened on these college campuses, that are still, kind of under investigation, but, seem like, hanging was involved and stuff like that. A lot of people I'm still seeing are like, being like, oh, we'll see. So that's why you shouldn't celebrate, because now it's back on us. But it's the crazy part is, like I said, it was a white person that, shot Charlie in the first place. And for the most part, it was black people being like, oh, we need to pray for the brother and his family or whatever. So then to turn around and be like, oh, because people shouldn't have been celebrating, which, like I said, nobody really was doing. Oh, because now things are now getting turned on us. When it's like these people were looking for any chain of events to like start, doing like that whole little stance that the white guys did, or like white men fight back or whatever. Like it's just like they were waiting for something to happen, because it's like it's like this isn't even had like no black person was even there, was in a white Republican city. So to now be like, oh, we're taking retaliation, and it was a far right person at that. It's not even like it was a white leftist person. Like he was basically murdered because he wasn't far right enough. So yeah, I just think that is just really interesting to me. Like, how kind of like on whatever end, it's just kind of like we're to blame for it. But yeah, and then like, and black people were getting murdered before Kirk. So yeah, so that is, that's interesting.
And I blame the lack of political clarity from organizations. Like this be honest. Like what black political organization? When I say political, I mean revolutionary, radical, of that lineage that's really providing political direction at this time, at this juncture that people have faith in, that's really building and not to shit on anybody, but just to continue call for greater organizing, greater political education, the greaterness, and not to the fall, because we keep falling into this path of trying to be the Panthers all over again, trying to be some organization of the past. Like we have to be the organization of the day. Yeah. We have to learn from the past and learn those lessons, and I think that's one thing our enemy has continued to outmaneuver us. Like when I was in LA, and I forget the topic, but it was around awareness and whatnot. And I was like, the enemy, you think about Malcolm and how Malcolm was able to utilize the media to get his as a propaganda machine. Like, what was that documentary they did? I think it was called The Making of the Devil or something like that. The first documentary that came out about the Nation of Islam. The devil made me do it, or it's something like that, right? But Malcolm was very savvy and forthright to see, like, man, I'm going to use this platform to get our message out. I think like the Black Panther Party to some degree when they go to Sacramento and they march on the state capitol, right?
Yeah, I was just talking about that.
Yeah. I mean, shortly after that, you got Black Panther chapters happening all over the country now, right? I mean, the media didn't realize how they was fueling our people to hear our message. You see it now. They're very strategic on who they allow and who they put in front of us to be able to tell our stories and political size people.
I'm so even as I was prepping for Steff to come on and watching the interview of the two women who wrote the book, and the host was saying that the reason why a need for this book is whatever is like the left, and I wonder if there's like a fine-tuning way of like what part of the because again, so I'm reading David's comment. Says the left and the racially oppressed and other marginalized communities are always blamed. That's the system. That's the system at work. And I wonder if there's like a fine balance of like saying that, like for instance, like when people say racism is a white problem, not a Black person problem. It's not like our fault that it's happening. But in terms of, I think maybe Yusef saying is like our inability to respond or to seize the moment is the reason why this thing will continuously happen, or is it being said like, it's our fault? Like, so I wonder if there's a conversation around that makes that clear.
I don't know. I think it's like, to me, it's kind of layered because it's like, I kind of went off on a guy that I'm still Facebook friends with from high school, and I spoke about him a little bit yesterday on the live, but he was like a white Republican in high school, like very bold with it. And my school is majority Black, and most of us were Democrats or whatever, but he always kind of sits down like, I'm this white Republican boy or whatever. And like he had said something, and it's similar to Candace and Charlie and all them, where he's clearly rewriting history. Like he basically was like, oh, well, Black people used to have like there used to be like high class Black people or something in the 30s, and then the leftist movement in the 60s ruined it all or whatever. Like and I just was like, boy, so you just gonna skip over this, that, the third, and be like, oh, the Black, not even leftists, I mean, not even Black leftists, but the left movement in general ruined it all, as if we weren't responding to a high level of racism, white supremacy, white hegemony, like so many things, redlining, so many systemic things. And obviously I pointed out that you can't point to one elite class and be like, oh, well, all Black people were doing fine, you know, like that means literally nothing in the wide scale of things. But I think it's one of those things, looking at that, like I said, it's disgusting how people rewrite history as like, oh, these leftists just came out of the blue and made stuff harder for everybody or whatever. But obviously it's to be expected from a person like that. But then two, it's like you have Black people, you know, arguing me, kind of saying that he's right or whatever. So then I'm looking at it like this is a failure of, you know, I mean, yeah, of us being able to, you know, propagandize and get our actual stuff out there, because people are now, because now people are, you know, rewriting history and stuff like that. So, but at the same time, you understand that there's a huge machine, you know, that to kind of, you know, push these voices down, you know, and so it's I feel like it's very layered. But yeah, I think in that scenario, I'm looking at like, why are you demonizing us when we're actually the good people in this situation? And then B, I'm looking at the Black people making me feel like, well, dang, I guess, you know, we really do need to get better because y'all are now believing a white supremacist telling you about Black history, you know? So it's just kind of like, yeah. And I think as an artist, I think it's just, you know, continue trying to find ways of like, how do you get those politics out there, you know? And I think that's even what I still try to find as far as like my next steps, as far as like trying to do this work, is like, how do you build something kind of like locally or on a smaller scale, but eventually, you know, still spread the word in a way that like isn't, you know, how do you get the word out, you know, to a mass amount of people without, you know, the levels of like industry and all these other things playing, coming into par and that being compromised or whatever. So yeah, so it's a lot. Sorry if I went on.
I mean, also we got to keep in mind too, the propaganda is still propaganda. The machine is still the same, but there's different platforms now, right, than ever. Twitter, Facebook, podcasts. It's oversaturated with propaganda. I mean, you have people who have. I mean, they may have read Malcolm X back cover, right, and then looked at the rest on YouTube videos and et cetera. Or John Henry Clark, you know, took the shorthand study, and these are the individuals that move to the forefront because of their loud voice, or they may look good, or you know, whatever the case that's drawing people. And it's like every 5 years there's a new individual, there's a new voice. And unfortunately, our people and oppressed people in general are so desperate for leadership that they'll just accept anything. And again, I think that's why, you know, the movement or organizations are so necessary, but they have to be the right organizations, the right movements that are structured in the right way.
Yeah. So y'all watching Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, episode 31. In a few minutes, we'll be joined by the good brother Steff Reed, who would be coming to talk about We Pray for Freedom. It's probably a connecting conversation along with what we've been talking about so far. So he'll be with us shortly. Yeah, any other thoughts on that, or anything else that's kind of been happening that y'all feel like is connected to maybe this pre-bill conversation?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday we were kind of connecting it to a conversation that you brought up a while back when why am I blinking? Zenzi was on. We talked about soft life a little bit. We were just kind of connecting it to this whole kind of far right machine on, like, you know, because I think it was Ricky that brought up the whole nuclear family thing and how that ties into like the whole soft life ideology or whatever. And I was saying, yeah, and I think that even shows too, because I mean, a lot of the women on my timeline that would also be like, you know, soft life, you know, have a husband, work for me, all these other things, are the same women that are like, yeah, you know, pray for Charlie's family, and Charlie was a father, and it all connects. And I saw even this one girl that reposted something that Charlie was saying about like the lack of fathers in the home and Black fathers and all this other stuff. And she connected with what he's saying, because she's always posting about like fathers not being in the home and Black men need to step up. And, you know, it kind of, like I said, it just kind of creates this whole cycle too, when you add in that layer. And I even brought up the awkward part about it all was a girl I went to school with that actually dated that white boy that's my Facebook friend while I was in high school. She's married now, but she commented on a post he made when he was having a breakdown about Charlie being like I'm so sorry, you know, but she's now a soft life influencer. Like all of her content is about how to get a man to pick you and how to be a good wife and well behaved, and how, you know, she got her a husband and she teaches coaching classes on how to get a husband. And yeah, she's the same one, you know, so I just thought that was a full circle moment, because we thought she was all cuckoo for dating that boy in high school. But it's like, even though she married to a black guy now, it's like she still was under his comments like, I'm so sorry about that. I feel so bad, you know? And so it's just like, yeah, I thought it was an interesting connection.
I mean, it sounds like whoever Charlie, I'm about to say Charlie Clips. That's funny. Whoever Charlie Kirk wife was, she was living a soft life, I would assume. I mean, I don't know what she did, but if her husband was flying all over the country, can't stop being booked to talk about bullshit, I mean, sounds pretty soft for her.
Yeah, so she was the vision then, because all of the black women that, you know, promote this soft life, it's always, well, the white men take care of their women. So, you know, so that was so she really is the pinnacle. But like, yeah, that pipeline is very, that pipeline is not something to play with, because it's very much connected.
Yeah, so Steff looked like he's queued up and ready to go. We're gonna take a break and then get right back to the conversation. So we'll be right back.
I'm throwing copper at the coppers, but I'm shaking like Morocco. Say my prayers with the pistol, serve the sinners with the chopper. All my buddies got it from scratch. My house had Betty Crocker. His mama owned D. He ain't even get no shot up. Profit is invisible. Profit come from product. He think it buffet. He can't comprehend no potluck. God bless the child with his own powder to rock.
Hey, what's up, Steff? Happy belated birthday to you. His birthday was yesterday, so shout out to him in the chat, y'all. He's celebrating a birthday as well. But yeah, so this is Steff Reed. We've had him on before. He's a artist, a cultural worker, a bunch of other titles, writer, a theologian. He just got another title today. I saw you announce something else that you are now. So a man of many hats, a radical Renaissance man, I guess you would say. But yeah, we got Steff Reed. But yeah, I don't know if we say hi to the people real quick.
Peace and love, friends. Peace to Black Liberation Media. Peace, Cherie D. Peace, Geechee, and Dr. Yusef, Bunchy, Shakur. Peace to you. Peace be unto you, my family.
Okay, so I guess I have my questions written down. So my first question that I wanted to ask, you have a new book dropping. That's what we're mainly here to talk about. Is we pray freedom. And I want to know, what does this book mean to you at a time like this, when people are using faith to honor and somewhat protect white Christian nationalists? What does this mean to you coming out like kind of during this time?
Oh, thank you so much for lifting up the book, which is out now, published by Broadleaf Books. We Pray Freedom, Liturgies and Rituals from the Freedom Church of the Poor. What is this? So your question is apt. It's important right now. I think it's not new. I think since this cross culmination of conservatism, Republicans, the Republican Party, and Christian evangelicals in the early 80s, we've seen like this, this relationship become hegemonic, like it's become a part of the dominant culture. So then we see the way that the right has kind of co-opted Christianity, co-opted religion, and used it and weaponized it against the people to like divide and conquer, right? And so we're in a time now, fast forward 40 years later, where when you think about Christian values, you kind of automatically think about the Republican Party. You automatically think about conservatism, MAGA, And that's actually a strategic move. What to me is ironic about that merger, one, is that Jesus Christ, that revolutionary Palestinian Jew, freedom fighter, railed against empire. He was an organizer. He was a revolutionary. He had class consciousness. He was advocating for the needs of the least of these. He was advocating for the needs of the poor, of the dispossessed. The gospel is really the gospel. It's like the good news for the poor. Jesus Christ was not aligned with empire. In fact, he was executed. He was assassinated. He was executed by empire. He was crucified publicly. That was the state putting him to death. So I'm saying that again to say, ironically, Jesus was not aligned with empire. He was not preaching prosperity gospel. In fact, he told the rich man, it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven, because of the love of materialism, the love of wealth versus the love of the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. So that's a long kind of setting the table to say Christianity, faith, spirituality is one of the ways in which we make meaning. It's one of the ways we produce hope, to struggle, to resist. And it's the ways that we create community and congregate, right? I think that for those of us, organizers, activists, culture workers like yourself, there's many ways in which faith, religion, spirituality is becoming, in many ways, more and more distanced from our movements. There was a time when, specifically looking at the civil rights movement, the Black church was like actually essential. It was center to that movement. Not all churches. There was many churches that didn't believe that the church should be involved in politics and shouldn't be involved in social justice. But there was this strand that people like Martin Luther King came from, that Ella Baker came from. These are Black radical activists and organizers that understood the power of spirituality to like bring people together, to bolster hope, to create a sense of togetherness and belief in something bigger than yourself. So I'm saying that in these times, folks on the left, organizers, activists, people that believe in freedom and want total liberation for our people, it's important that we take back our spiritual practices. It's important that we take back our faith, take back our religion, so that we can fortify ourselves to continue to fight the ruling class, to fight empire, to resist fascism. We need something bigger than ourselves. And I'm not saying Christianity is the way. I believe there are many ways to find righteousness and to find meaning. What I am saying is that we need to fortify our movements, and faith and spirituality is one of the most important ways that we can do that.
Welcome back.
Peace, good brother. Thank you for that. I was just curious. I got everything that you said. It makes sense to me. But I was wondering, does it align with the shrine? Are you familiar with the Shrine of Black Madonna, Reverend Cleed?
I've heard of it. I'm not super deep. I'm not super steeped in it, but I've heard of it. Yeah. All
right. So I'll answer my question. I mean, it sounds like so Reverend Cleed wrote two books. One was The Black Messiah. Honestly, he sounded like he read some of it, where he deems Jesus Christ, as he calls him Black, though, the Black Revolutionary Messiah, and he utilized that philosophy and those principles to pretty much take back Christianity, right? And in the sense of America as a means to organize black folks. And I'll conclude on this. It pretty much was like the formation and that they utilized was similar to the Nation of Islam, but it was a Black Christian nationalism. Actuality, they was neck and neck at one point with the nation. They just for some reason didn't continue, or possibly they never was able to get their Malcolm X. I'll say that because I mean they ultimately had chapters here in Detroit, still have a chapter in Atlanta, Houston, and other parts, but it just didn't continue. But what you laid out is at somewhat at the premise of their organizing strategy and their philosophy.
Yeah, thank you for raising them up. I mean, it's I believe it's super important to like recover these histories, to excavate them from the annals of history, from the annals of history, so that we can continue to learn from them. Spirituality, religion, faith, these things are not ancillary, right? So you mentioned Malcolm X. Malcolm X was in the Nation of Islam. Malcolm X was a Muslim. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he was able to galvanize so many people, because he gave people something to believe in. Now, it's a known fact that during that time, Elijah Muhammad was against getting involved in politics and Malcolm speaking up about political issues. But there is a way, by using using Islam, he was able to give people hope, something to believe in, organize people. Similar with Martin Luther King and Christianity, Abraham Joshua Heschel and Judaism. Look at the Black Panther Party and their relationship with the church. Look at the Young Lords, their relationship with the church. There's ways that spirituality, again, I can't say this enough, it fortifies us. It gives us something to believe in. It gives us hope. And hope may seem like a lofty, hippy-dippy concept, but in the face of catastrophe, confronting counterinsurgency, militarism, people that are quite literally being disappeared at this moment via ICE. We look at genocide in Palestine. Part of the work of empire is to push us to the point of feeling like their rule is inevitable, for us to lose complete hope, for us to lose our fight, for us to lose our will to make their work easy. So something like hope is a radical thing in the face of grim catastrophe from empire. So yes, spirituality is super important, Dr. Shakur.
So I'm gonna blame you, Steff. Welcome back, and Yusef for this long ass thought that I want you to respond to. So first, as I was watching the two authors talk about the book, they use a lot of believe, we believe, believe. And it begs to consider that it's a perspective based off of reading. And again, we have an event at Morehouse coming up next month with Beneath the Mountain with Jennifer Black and Rumia Edit, and I've been revving it, and Jared is in the chat. I told him John Brown letter to his wife, the last one, kind of makes you reconsider. But anyway, in Matthew 21, one could take Matthew 21, 22 and say, well, like, see, I believe God is telling us to create our own currency. Give to Caesar what's his, and then we need to go to crypto, right? Because this belief thing is like open. And as I'm thinking about like the organized fashion of white power, even though they're fighting over the methodology of maintaining such a thing, I'm just curious about, like, kind of to use of points. Like, is Christianity a site of struggle to be taken back? What is the political utility of such a thing? The numbers probably look a little off, meaning there are probably more Christianity rooted in, I guess, what Marima Ani would talk about, the Acelia, the germinating seed of world domination. And it's like less people using Christianity or interpreting Christianity in a way to free themselves and others around them. So again, I'm curious around the we believe part. And yeah, what is the utility of that? And kind of to Brittany's point earlier, like, you can believe in socialism and that will be something you have to collectively build. And I'm not sure if the belief in Christianity is something that you could build, but then maybe you can share because maybe it's in a social environment that you can build that Christianity aim for. But yeah, again, I wanted to freestyle, but you go ahead.
Geechee, gotta, man, you can always count on Geechee to raise the bar and come with the pertinent questions. No softballs with Geechee. All right, Geechee. Here we go. So yes, there is utility in Christianity. We have examples of the liberation theology tradition of Catholics that come Catholic priests that are coming from South America, Gustavo Gutierrez, and others who were using a Marxist analysis to understand the material conditions of the people and using that as a lens to look at the Bible to do what the Bible is supposed to do, which is tend to the least of these, is to tend to God's children. The idea of like an imago Dei or the image of God, like we all are God's children, and there's no reason why we should have billionaires while people are sleeping in the gutter. There's no reason that people should be owning gobs of property and private jets while people can't get healthcare. There's no reason why we're like living in a society that's throwing away food and super wasteful while while children are starving to death. So there is a way that religion writ large, even Christianity, is aligned with socialist values of everybody having their basic needs met. I would argue that much of Jesus's ministry was healing the sick. It was feeding the people with the loaves and the fish. It was, tending to the people that were the undesirables of society. I think, back to your point, looking at the Black Panthers and looking at the Young Lords, those are two Black and brown socialist formations who both had intimate relationships with the church and did their organizing out of them, right? We look at the People's Church in Harlem, the Son of Man Temple in Oakland. Though these efforts, there can be critiques about them, there's radical and revolutionary potential there. One is because, and I'm working on an article for Forge magazine about this, is churches, though they are losing some sense of relevance in the public's, in maybe the trust of like the public, and there is like the hierarchy of trust, they do hold some moral ground. There is a way that, especially when things get bad, I think people still do turn to religion and to faith leaders for guidance. They still come to them for sustenance spiritually and materially. You go to, often churches will have food kitchens and food pantries and soup kitchens, clothing drives, and they actually have resources to actually help meet the material needs of people and also give them hope and give them love. That's actually something that's very useful. But in addition to that, we have a long tradition of churches that will use their maybe other rooms, the basement, for like the underground work of organizers to actually meet and strategize and plan. That's super crucial, especially in this fascist time where there's so much of our movement, so much of what's happening is being surveilled via social media. So much doxing is being done for our movement leaders. Churches and religious institutions can offer cover. And so that's like, that's actually an important collaboration to be made there with organizers and activists and faith leaders in these churches, so that we can have a place for cover, a place to organize, to strategize, to get fed our souls as well as our people. Because, and to add to that point, Geechee, many of the people that we want to organize are in church. So there's also that. They also may be at a mosque and they also may be at a synagogue, but our people, not all of them, but many of our people still believe. And for those who do believe, we need to meet them where they are. Though, did I answer your, did I satisfy? Okay. And the last part, belief. Man, belief. If you look back as old as humanity goes, there are like cave drawings, folk art of people trying to figure out life. They're trying to figure out what it means to be human. They're trying to make sense of this world. And faith, spirituality, and religion is one of the ways that we make sense of life. Life is the unknown is scary. Life is scary. And I think it's endemic in people to make meaning. And so whether it's through their God, whether it's through their rituals, this is what sustains people. And back to this book, we pray freedom, liturgies, rituals from the Freedom Church of the Poor. Rituals sustain us. Think about when we like light incense and we like light a candle and we sit in front of our altar. It's a way to like spiritually sustain us. Think about the ways that maybe we prepare for dinner. That's like these rituals help create our reality. What we believe in is basically our reality. Our reality is shaped by what we believe. What we have hope, what we believe in is all reality. So it's all interconnected with this struggle for collective liberation. So I'm gonna end it there.
So I agree with you in principles and in the essence of the point. And not necessarily what I struggle with, I think what our people struggle with. I mean, the two primary religions that has impacted Black people negatively, positively, however where you land, has been Christianity and Islam. I remember recently I joined a Baptist church, and that's another show, another topic where I joined. But I began to study and read some the Baptist history, and it was profound to me, the things I was reading, and going back when we was enslaved. When you think about, it was like chitlins or the pig that was left, and we took it and we created stuff out of it. And I know I'm using a hell of an analogy, but it's the extreme dynamic. And after I didn't finish reading the book, I was just skimming through it, and it made me look at Christianity a little different, and definitely made me look at Islam different, because both those religions, African Black people have had an imprint on them, despite their cultural ramifications of being a white Christian system with rituals, an Arab cultural system of rituals. So what I want to get to and ask is, how do we extract those things that we contribute to your point that you're talking about of staying on this path toward liberation? I mean, for one, I believe the spiritual struggle is a political struggle too. So can you talk about that component? Because I think that is necessary in this struggle.
Oh, Dr. Shakur, you're touching on something that's like, it's a pertinent question regarding like, how do we reconcile the master's tools, right? There's ways that religion, specifically Christianity, has been used to implement colonization, dehumanization, extraction, exploitation via the doctrine of discovery, right? Which is the subtext for chattel slavery and for the genocide and exile of the natives. So there is the slavery Bible. There is a Bible that has there's passages that are removed and redacted, right? So we have to acknowledge, yes, that exists. That's real. And that's something that we all have to wrestle with. But to your point, Dr. Shakur, I think it's an ongoing. So two things. One, it's an ongoing process to like extract. And I'm a student now at Union Theological Seminary. I'm getting a Master of Arts, a Master of Sacred Theology, and my study at this point in time is social ethics. One crucial thing is that social ethics, meaning defined terms. Social ethics is what is going on here and what ought we to do. Good social ethics when done well, looking at systems, structures, people, how we interact, how they impact us. Good social ethics is done in community. So this question of how ought we to reconcile the harm that religion has caused us whilst extracting what we need from it in order to liberate ourselves. These are difficult questions we need to wrestle with collectively. This is not like an independent mission. Case in point, before coming onto the show, I spoke to several people in my inner circle about like how to approach some of the questions that may come up, some of the topics that may come up. And it speaks to something I mentioned the last time I was on here, Cherie. My comrade, Willie Baptist, who says, "You're stupid if you think only with your own brain." It's Willie Baptist, who's part of the Cairo Center. I just want to lift that up again. It is stupid to think only with your own brain. And social ethics, when done well, is done in collective, in community. So the question, Dr. Shakur, of like, how do we figure this out? What's the right thing? We all need to do this together, which is why joining a political home is super important. So we can wrestle with the hard questions together and find the solution. I mean, and that's even for the leftists out there, that's part of the whole like the dialectic, right? Is the one thing going with the other thing to creating a new thing. And I think we do that. We wrestle with the tensions together to figure out what works for us. Because what worked yesterday may not work today. What works today may not work tomorrow. But we figure these things out in collective, and we evaluate and we figure out what we need to do together by using the past as a reference point, right? As a reference to like, this has been used in the past. It's worked. Let's see if we can work it. How do we apply it to this particular context? Yeah, so that's the answer, Doctor. That's my response.
Okay. Yeah, it just kind of makes me think about what we were going through yesterday and in a study we had with CMB and some other orgs of breaking down kind of like those steps. And kind of me thinking about how you would even like consider faith and religion into that of like, well, what is a thing of the past? What are the actual circumstances? And like, you know, how do we apply that to now? Like, how do we, you know, and I think, yeah, that is a huge part of like meeting people where they're at. Cause I think even if and I'm just now kind of understanding more about liberation theology this past year and a half or whatever, but even if when I first kind of did my skims through of like people who might have written books, decades ago or whatever about Black liberation theology and stuff about the Shrine Church, and even kind of now seeing this new wave and all that it involves, where I feel like it's just more of like overall like a liberating spiritual framework overall, where I feel like in the past it might have still been like, well, we're still very strictly Christian, but I think now the decolonization is like, okay, like, yeah, you can be Christian and have respect for like, African religions and spiritual practices and stuff too. And, and then there's a level of hoodoo where that is brought together and that should be respected. People just applying it to overall, like, yeah, just like a liberatory framework for spirituality overall, I think is what I'm seeing now as like a newer thing. And you're even getting, historical Christians or people that'll say like, I went to school to be a pastor, or, kind of be in one specific denomination of things. But then kind of, like I said, they open it up to like, how do all of these things connect? And I find that pretty fascinating and very like, with the times of like where people are at, because I still do think most people, a good amount of Black people identify as Christian, but I do think we are in this era where like a lot of people are looking for other things, but it still is like, even in these other things, you have to find a way to make the practice actionable. Like people can say, oh, I'm no longer with the white man's religion. I'm not Christianity. I do, this African spirituality thing over here. But if they still kind of have the white man's principles or are thinking about it, like I said, in context to on American soil, then they're not really getting that full, that full understanding, even in a different religion. It's still not necessarily liberatory it may be liberatory for them, but it's not liberatory for the collective, which you're, emphasizing when you talk about actual collectiveness. But yeah, so I was just thinking, to me, like, how do you think the book connects to actual action? Because I think that's the thing. Like, I can understand liberation theology in my head, but how do I make it actionable towards revolutionary struggle? Like, is it a separate thing? Is it just something that needs to be central to me and what allows me to go out every day and be the best cultural worker, CMB member or community member or whatever you want to call me? Like, is it just, is that just what it is? Or like, is there a way, to like make it an actionable thing with this kind of liberatory faith outlook? If my question makes sense, like, I guess that's what I'm looking for.
No, that makes perfect sense, Cherie. So I want to just first kind of put on the table that religion, like anything else, like art, like music, like culture, is a weapon, and it cuts both ways. Religion, let me say it again, religion, like art, like music, like culture, is a weapon, and it can cut both ways, which is where the ethics come in. It's like, how are we using this weapon? Are we using this weapon to subjugate, or are we using this weapon to liberate? That being said, the liberation theology movement comes out of the late 1960s, and it's a response to mass injustice happening in South America. Liberation theology, the main premise is God's preferential option for the poor. God's preferential option for the poor. Meaning, it's looking at the most marginalized and their lived experience. It's liberation theology. Liberation theology is contextual. Liberation theology is contextual, meaning it looks at the life experience and the material conditions and the systemic oppression, the relationship to that individual and the power structure. What is their experience? And what does God have to say for them and to them? It's a theology from below, right? We have to remember, God was, like, Jesus Christ was not a rich person. He was born in a manger. It was not a theology of the ruling class. So liberation theology is like putting it back in that context. And then out of liberation theology, we get Black liberation theology, we get womanist theology, we get queer theology, and so on, and Dalit theology, and so on and so forth. So I hope that gives you some context. I would say read some of the work like God of the Oppressed from Gustavo Gutierrez. I would read Black Liberation and Black Power by James H. Cone. A Theology of Liberation by Gustavo Gutierrez. Black Liberation and Black Power. Black Theology and Black Power by James H. Cone. God of the Oppressed by James H. Cone. Just to get a grounding on like how to understand how liberation theology can help revolution. Because from what I understand, looking at like Isaiah in the Bible, God loves justice. And when we think about the Lord's Prayer, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Where? On earth, as it is in heaven. Why would Jesus say, on earth as it is in heaven, if we are to only be concerned with heaven?
Yo, tell me why I've been saying that in my show. And like, I didn't even catch that I was repeating apart from the Lord's Prayer, but that is deep. I didn't even catch that, but yeah.
So if Jesus was only to be concerned with this utopia in heaven, with the afterlife, if Jesus was only to be concerned with individual sin and our own salvation, Why was he going around healing the sick and feeding the hungry and tending to people's basic needs? It's because on earth as it is in heaven. So liberation theology is a lens that we can use to bring forth that kingdom or kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. And it's a collective struggle for collective liberation. And how do we figure out what ought we to do? We do it in collective. We do it in community. How do you do that? Join a political organization and you figure that out. There's ways that we can read scripture, whether it be the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, and so many other spiritual texts that they all kind of, in so many ways, many of them are pointing to similar divine truths about how we ought to treat each other, how we ought to be together, what is best for us in regards to like our spiritual and material needs. We compare that with like some of the genius and wisdom that our artists and our poets and our prophets are telling us in today's context. I believe my pastor at my church, Judson Memorial Church, where I was just hired as the Sunday school director. Clap for me. So my pastor, Micah Busey, says this really beautiful quote. Micah says, artists have the potential to serve as today's modern day prophets. Artists, culture work, again, Micah Busey from Judson Memorial Church will say, artists have the potential to serve as today's modern day prophets. I believe that artists have the power to tap into the divine, to channel God's energy, to channel God's wisdom, to channel God's truth. Look at people like Bob Marley. Look at people like Nina Simone. They were like spitting gospel, not gospel a genre, but they were telling the truth, straight truth. And they were tapping in to something greater than themselves. And they were awakening the consciousness of people around the world. So you juxtapose that kind of prophetic truth-telling and wisdom of the artists as prophets with whatever your sacred text in your scripture says. We have the spark and the flame to ignite righteous indignation and to build collective revolution, and to build collective liberation. We need to do this together. And it's actually the work of all of us to do part of this work. We all have the pieces that we do and bring it together. And just again, as cultural workers, one of the things that I would just offer to you, Cherie, is I saw your play. It was genius, right? Your one-woman show, it was brilliant. It was one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen in my life. You came up to New York, you did your one-woman show, you tapped into so many things. You tapped into afterlife, you tapped into purpose, you tapped into meaning, you tapped into capitalism, you tapped into Black excellence, you tapped into, gosh, so many things. I think part of what made your work resonate was that you were tapping into the sacred and the spiritual. I'm gonna say the sacred and the secular. Both. It was the both and, sacred and secular. I wonder how could the rest of us, faith leaders, artists, cultural organizers, activists, those who believe in freedom, if we were to tap into that divinity and to tap into that spiritual and that sacred and secular register, how much more impactful could our work be? If we're using all the tools in the tool belt to get free, and if we're not agnostic, but if we're allergic to faith, if we're allergic to spirituality, if we're allergic to these other registers of the human condition, not just the intellectual, but also the physical, the body, the embodiment. The human has so many registers. If we are only limiting ourselves to the intellectual, to the mental, imagine how much more we can reach people and transform consciousness if we reach them at an emotional level, at a cathartic, physical, embodied level, at a spiritual, existential, metaphysical level. So much more is possible, and I'm inviting all of us to like really tap into all the things available, because we are whole humans, and it's going to take more than what we're doing at this moment to get free. I'll stop there.
You just spoke a word. You got me crying, Steff.
Oh, man up. No, I'm joking. So listen, I wanna do something. And this is maybe to try to grapple with like people who argue around epistemology and ontology. So I'm gonna ask a question. I'm gonna play a video and like read a quick passage and argument, and then I want you to answer the question and then share whatever other thoughts, right? So, is this book a tool or effort to organize Christians? Maybe with the hope that people who are non-Christian and who are focused on liberation accept the reality that a majority of the African people and maybe even other people in this country identify as Christians. So that's kind of that's the question. And then I want to kind of go to Kobe Cambone's argument around why we remember Nat Turner as opposed to why people say we remember Nat Turner. And then I'm going to read a passage from Nat Turner and John Brown really quickly and then get you to answer that question. So this is Kobe Cambone. If anybody remember this beautiful brother, here's something.
So the very heroes that will give us strength and give us regenerative power, those the ones we just say, I'll try to redefine. Nat Turner, he was a preacher. No, he killed Europeans. That's what was significant about it, to save African people. You see, Harriet Tubman, she was a religious woman, but she carried that gun to kill Europeans who were trying to stop African people from trying to be free. You see, that's what our children need to understand. That's a proper role model for an African child, is to learn about African people who stand against white supremacy domination. Then you're going to have a healthy child. When I was growing up, that this I believe this total misnomer used to argue that we can't teach black children the truth because they'll get them killed. And they're getting blown away every day in ignorance. You see? And here we are participating in keeping them ignorant. We don't know what the outcome would have been giving them some sense.
So again, the argument around Nat Turner being a preacher, there was tons of preachers out there, but that particular preacher throw them hands and guns. But so there's an argument that Nat had a class analysis, right? Because he even says since he was a young boy, before he even got a grip of maybe Christianity, there were white and black folks who will say, I quote, "I suppose in my uncommon intelligence for a child, remarked, I had too much sense to be raised. And if I was, I would never be of any service to anyone as a slave," right? So white and black people told Nat that when he was a little kid, before he even get a grasp into. And then again, so the argument could be like, well, I don't know if it's Christianity, it's the seed that was sown in him before, right? And then again, same thing with John Brown. John Brown talks about how his family should not be ashamed of his legacy. Now, and I've been saying this lately for the last 2 weeks. Both of these men outlived the life of their family members and the memory of their family members, right? Whatever they believe. So again, I'm curious to get you to respond to that, but initially answer the question like, is this book an effort to try to organize Christian folks?
This book? Okay, let's start. Okay. Ooh. Geechee, y'all. Geechee, y'all. What's your sign, Geechee?
That way. No,
what's your birthday?
Libra.
You're a Libra. You're spicy. Okay, so I appreciate the audio clip that you played. I would argue that Nat Turner and Harriet Tubman, I would argue that I would argue that violence is not what makes them special. I would argue what makes them special is their courage, their bravery. I would argue what makes them special is their willingness to take a huge risk, to risk their lives for something bigger than themselves. And the truth is, we can find courageous people in all types of traditions. You can also find cowards in the same traditions. We can find courageous Christians and cowardly Christians. We can find courageous Muslims and cowardly Muslims. We can find courageous socialists and cowardly socialists. So I don't want to essentialize ideology, religion in a way where you pick this and then you're good. You still have to do the work of living up to being the best version of yourself and of the thing and what the tradition has to offer. And again, back to Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner, what they modeled for us was great moral courage. What they modeled for us was unapologetic Blackness, unapologetic thirst for liberation and freedom of themselves and their people, and willing to die for something that they believe in. That's actually a righteous cause. I don't want to speak too much on a public platform about the means, right? The methodology. Again, I'm not about to go on a public platform at these times and advocate for violence. So I just will leave it at what makes Nat Turner and Harriet special is their courage, their bravery, their selflessness, the willingness to take a risk, their boldness, their faith and belief in humanity, something bigger than themselves. Now to the book, We Pray Freedom, Liturgies and Rituals from the Freedom Church of the Poor, which you can get right now and is published by Broadleaf Books, is edited by the great Liz Theo Harris and Sharon Rabar from the Cairo Center for Religion, Rights, and Social Justice, where I work as a cultural organizer. And I've contributed to this book. I have, open it up, you'll find me. This book is for anybody who is organizing and wants to fortify the movement. Why do I say that? Because bringing people to organizing is an arduous task. It'll wear you out. Marching and yelling and meeting notes. It is a lot. Organizing is a lot. It's draining. Activism is draining. We have so much burnout in our movements. And there's people that part of the burnout is like, how much gains do we have? What have we won? How far have we gotten? Is any of this working? You know? And so these liturgies and rituals and these songs, it's a form of spiritual and emotional and psychological nourishment so we can keep going. It's a way to refill that well of hope to keep going. It's a way to energize and uplift our meetings when we get together for an organizing meeting. It sucks to listen to someone talk for 2 hours. It does. But like starting your organizing meeting or your convening or whatever it is, if you start those meetings out with a chant, some embodiment, some stretching, some breathing, some rituals, some songs, and then disperse that stuff beginning of the meeting, in the middle of the meeting, at the end, it makes it way more sustainable. So just from like a pragmatic, logistical, applied point of view, using a book like this will help to make your work more improve efficacy. Two is that on the other side of that, if you're already a faith leader or you're organizing with people that are familiar with religion, with faith, with Christianity, when you apply these rituals and liturgies, when you apply this stuff, it will be familiar to them. They're like, oh my God, I feel seen, I feel heard. You're speaking my language. You're connecting with me with something I can relate to. So many of our freedom fighters talk about the people's culture, not just any culture. It's the people's culture. We use the people's culture to organize them, to relate to them. So this book helps us to do that, to reach our people with the culture that is resonant to them. It helps us to make our movement stronger. It helps us to give us songs and chants and things that we can say when we're like mourning. We need these things. I was at a convening in New Mexico. There was an organizer convening in New Mexico back in August. And I remember I met this lady. I can't remember the organization she was with. God for charge my head, not my heart. But she said to me that she's from LA, and she was saying that they were singing songs from the civil rights movement. And I was like, Jesus Christ, why? It's like, she's like, I don't think there's any more new songs. I'm like, there's so many new songs. There's so much new songs. And myself and so many of my comrades are writing them. People from Dream Defenders, people from Black Youth Project or BYP 100, the people like the Peace Poets. There's so many of us that are like coming together. People from the Highlander Folk Center that are like coming together and writing new movement songs and writing new movement chants that we are coming to bring the thing to life. So it feels relevant and it feels alive and not stuck in the past. So this stuff is like, if you want to make your movement, your organizing, your activism stronger, get this book. We Pray Freedom, Liturgies, Rituals from the Freedom Church of the Poor. Out now via Broadleaf Books. Featuring me. I hope that's helpful.
I just want to add real quick to Geechee's clip that he showed. I think that we continue to fall in that trap of an either or versus a both and. And even the clip itself is it leaves a lot of nuance and context out. I don't think that we continue to. I mean, in any struggle, there's always every opportunity to explore different strategies, or you may be trapped in one strategy, then you grow to another, right? Or you should grow if this one didn't work. But I think for some reason that we've always been trapped in it, either we gotta be violence or we gotta be done violent. I mean, I think at the end of the day, there is no discussion around what we need to be besides getting free, and the strategy will produce itself. Again, I think because of the nature of Christianity associated with whiteness, we immediately look at it as a certain type of way. I know if we had this conversation, almost 10 years ago, I would probably be talking differently than I'm now, and that's just my political maturity. I'm not saying I detest white Christianity just like the next person and shit, but I know what we contributed and how we utilized it. Nat Turner, I mean, he said he was ordained by God to liberate his people. I mean, we gave a process, same. They utilized those tools and took them and flipped them, and I think we tend to forget ourselves. Like, we'll never be the traditional African people that we was. It does not negate that we're African people. However, we're a different type of African people, and we struggle with many contradictions to find our liberated selves.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for speaking some life into me as a cultural worker. I think I needed to hear that as I prepare for this Atlanta show. I think you remind me that we all have a role in that. We need all of these things: cultural work, art, religion, spirituality. We cannot afford to leave any tool behind. It's kind of one of the biggest things that I'm hearing, and I think sometimes, I can, I think even in organizing, I feel like I find myself being like, well, I think this is probably more important than me doing this art or that, or this part of me, and so I find myself always trying to somewhat compartmentalize or somewhat inner critique of well, how important is, the work that you're doing on stage versus the work that you may be trying to do in Atlanta community of Pittsburgh or something like what, so I think, you kind of laying it all out is that, we have to be constantly using all of our weapons and not limiting ourselves. And, so I appreciate that because I needed that as a cultural worker. I definitely needed to hear that. But yeah, I think it is like, I never really thought of it like, but I've always thought that like art and cultural work was a spiritual thing or like, and obviously when I was like in a church cult, that was like, it was the whole art is your ministry, but I, kind of when I kind of got out of that, I didn't really view my art as much as that. Like obviously I've always viewed it as art for liberation, but I think, opening up the framework for how we view actual ministry and stuff like that. I think, just kind of circles it back to like, how you're saying, even in the show, I talk about, the spiritual part, the secular part, and just how to make them, interconnect because that's all of us, actually in the world. So sorry to go on. But
can we stay there for a second? Wait, can you tell me about, this is important. So just trust where I'm going with this. What brought you to a cult and what kept you there?
I was in a cult for like a year and a half. And I think I was, like I said, I go in depth on the episode we had yesterday. They asked a bunch of questions, but it was about a year and a half. And I mean, it wasn't like the extreme of cult, like, nobody was pimping me out and nobody was physically abusing me, but it was about like a year and a half. I was at a performing arts church in New York City. It was pretty cultish. I mean, aside from there was no abuse and nobody was taking my money, but they were very like brainwashy and you had to interpret the Bible the way they interpreted the Bible. And they had like a Bible Institute and they had rules and things that you had to learn from that Bible Institute. And they kind of wanted you to be with doing stuff on behalf of the church all the time and evangelizing on behalf of the church. Now, you weren't necessarily evangelizing about God or Jesus or anything. It was always like get more people to the church. They would text me every Friday, how many people you invited me to church how many people did you invite to church this week? But yeah, it was about a year and a half. And I think I was there because I was 20 and I was about 19 going on 20 when I joined. And I was about 21 when I left. So yeah, it was like a year and some change. And yeah, I mean, I was new to New York. I needed some sort of family and I always wanted to do good in the world. And I always like, I didn't grow up churchy. I grew up Christian, but not churchy. Like, my dad's not religious at all, really. And my mom, she's Christian, but she was not like a church mama or anything like that. But I always felt like I needed to be more churchy. So then when I got to New York and I had opportunity to be churchy and it was an arts church and, my best friend was there. All my friends were there. No, it's called the Rock Church. We were near Times Square Church. It was a small church. We had a larger church in the Queens area. But we would do our church in like little theater spaces. We would rent them because it was really only like 30 core members, but it was like maybe 50 or so sometimes could show up to service, but it was really about 30 core members. And yeah, we were all models and actresses and singers. And that was a big thing too of like, I was very fame hungry at that time too. So I was always trying to figure out like, what's the secret? Like, how do you go from being a regular person to Beyonce? Like, what's the secret? I was like trying to find that too. And, a lot of the people in the church, they were working actors. Some of them on Broadway, commercials, some were supermodels, but they never told you about the classes or their Asian or like any of their training. It was always, I was spreading the gospel and that's how I was evangelizing and that's how I got, on Vogue. But yeah, so I think there was like that hope of like wanting to do, because, at that time I thought, the biggest contribution I could have to my people, to society, was me being this big star. And so it was just like that tied into like a religious kind of ideology of like feeling like I must be disappointing God in some way because I'm not there yet, and being like, I got to get on the right path with God, and feeling like these people have the answers on like how I can get right with God. Like that's kind of what kept me, consistently like, there for like a while. And then, over time, I just started to have questions, be like, these people are insane. And, yeah, I mean, eventually I just had to get out. My best friend left about 3 months before me, but then I left after.
So the first thing is, I know the Rock Church. I used to be really tight with them. I used to actually go to church.
Bruce Glenn?
I know the twins.
Oh Lord, Bruce Glenn. Bless that Bruce. I say
Yasha and Ian.
Bruce and Glenn and Ian. Those are some of the nicest people I've ever met. Till this day. Ideology wise, obviously we differ, but nicest people I'll ever meet. But Yasha was the one that used to tell people she made a covenant with God that she wouldn't tell people where she got her weed from. When people ask she unfriended me a while ago on Facebook because I said something. I don't know.
So 10 years ago, I performed at the Apollo Theater and Yasha and Ian joined me. That was really dope. I was really cool with that whole crew for a while. I thought they were wonderful, stylish, young, beautiful Black people. So there's 3 takeaways. I just want to just pivot from that and get to why I asked you. Mm-hmm. The takeaways was you needed a sense of family. So that's belonging. Mm-hmm. Right? You were looking for a sense of purpose and then a sense of meaning. Those 3 things, purpose, meaning, and belonging, would make our movements on the left so much stronger. What would it mean to give our movements on the left a deeper sense of belonging and a deeper sense of family connectedness? What would it look like and feel like to have more sense of purpose and meaning, a deeper meaning? How would that fortify our movements and people's commitment to the project of collective
So we got to make it a real cult, and that's something I was thinking about. I know I'm going insane with the words.
That's actually not what I'm saying.
No, I know. I'm just being stupid. But no,
off the rails. Going off the rails.
So really quickly, two things. One, I think I like that stuff. I like that conversation and that thought because too often I think in the movement space on the left, there's this argument around well, we don't got to be friends. We're comrades. We ain't got to be comrades. And it's kind of like, it's almost like robotic, dogmatic argument around not being principled. And anyway, apart from that, and on top of that, I just put Cherie and one of our other organizers to work. I emailed y'all the link to this video with a slight little fire behind your ass. Can we say that? Christian ass, to maybe facilitate a viewing and talk back of this interview. Maybe we can start at Little Zion Church, or I'm sorry, Great Beloved Church, Little Zion space. And then maybe we can have Steff come eventually or the authors and see if we do because here's the thing. In Pittsburgh neighborhood, there's more churches per capita in any place in the world. So it's so many churches in this little ass neighborhood. Now, not all of them active and not all of them popping like Great Beloved, but it will be, I'm just putting ideas in your head. It will be dope to do a church tour in Pittsburgh neighborhood, starting at Little Zion, do a viewing and talk back and whatever, however you do it. But I put that charge to y'all. I think it will be dope because this conversation touched a bunch of spaces, but it's telling you that we probably should do another one.
Geechee, y'all, you were. I was like, yes, tell it, yo. It is too cold. It is too rigid. It is too robotic. It is too sanitized. This whole comrade culture is corny. I don't want to be a part of it. If this is the vibes on the if the day after revolution, this is the vibes, I don't want revolution, bro. Just leave me where I'm at. If we can't electric slide and we can't if we can't snap on each other, if we can't enjoy, if there's no joy, then this is fine. I guess we'll make it work. I'm being facetious, but I'm just saying that to say, dude, if we look at the Black radical tradition, look at people like Ella Baker. She was building relationships. She was sleeping at people's houses. She was going to church with people. She was building relationships. It wasn't just transactional, you're my comrade, come to the meeting. She was building friendships and relationships. So this whole comrade culture is very cold. It's anti-Black, I would argue. We need to be friendly with each other. We need to love each other. That's the law of Jesus. We need to love one another. We need to, who is my neighbor? Whose neighbor am I? Like, we need to have that orientation to make our movement stronger. People are not going to show up where they don't feel loved and belonged and welcome. Cherie was caught up in a cult because she felt loved.
Yeah, I mean, and so that's what I'm saying. I think, you know, yeah, I was joking earlier when I said make a cult, but I've been thinking of that. It's like, I'll say ew cult, but at the same time, I call myself a cultural worker. And so I was thinking, like, what is the actual, you know, because even you said the word culture, like there's this comrade culture. So in a way, obviously we have like levels to like a cult and, you know, and whatnot, but in a way, like we're all a part of like a culture, you know, and we can create, yeah. And as culture workers, we can create and shift that. So yeah, I've just been thinking about that, you know, when you were talking about those things, I was like, yeah. And so knowing that, you know, people are desiring those things, it's like, how do you create culture around something that, you know, people end up becoming a cult about, and how do you remove like the negative culture that could, you know, it still ends up
so I just want to hop in real quick. This is like a super affirming moment for me, because I'm like in the second master's program and I'm studying social ethics and like wondering if I made the right choice by choosing that. Social ethics is so concerned with this right here. What are the norms? How do we act? How do we treat each other? What are the ground rules? What are the community agreements? What is normative? Like, you start there. Like, when we think about revolution, it's not just about overthrowing a thing. It's also about building a new thing. But what is that new thing going to be like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What are the dance moves? What's the recipes? What are the new norms that we're building in this beautiful utopia? We ought to be, we need to be. It's incumbent that we are cognizant and fully aware and engaged in the process of creating new norms and being concerned about what they are, lest we tear down the thing and then recreate the same thing. Build down the structure and build a whole other structure, but the remix of the old one. No. We need to be concerned with the ethics of how we are doing things so that we are mindful not to recreate the thing that we are trying to dismantle with the colonial logic, the capitalist logic.
So I think, again, this conversation, I'm going to rewatch it because I feel like it pushed for trying to, as we talked about last night and we've been talking about for a year and a half, social investigation and understanding where people at currently and what people need to move from. You know, so for instance, like the idea around love is like, you know, understanding who you're loving and making a choice to meet them where they at and build with them, right? So if US is in a condition where, again, because I think people can argue that cadre and cult would be the same. We're like, oh, these people in cadre orgs, they're like in cult, and really it's like there's a discipline and a cultural or ethics or some type of ideological line commitment to it that's probably more clear. And I'm like, but to your point, it's like the cadre. Did somebody even pin that or talk around that? The cadre environment. I'm not cadre. Comrade environment, whatever you said. But I feel like that's
comrade culture.
Yeah, like, but I feel like we need to like.
Yeah,
it's just something that I've observed, just like trying to find my people, trying to find my tribe on the left. I've been around for a while, and what I notice is so much of the left is just this. It's like, I don't want to hang around you people. You guys read all the right, and they read all the right shit. They have the right analysis. They have the right take. They read all the right shit. All the right books is there. All the right videos. They know all the right quotes. But they're not wavy. I don't want to hang around you. You're not. You don't feel good. I want to be around people that feel good, where I can hug, we can laugh, we can cry, and then we can figure out how the fuck we get free.
Listen, I need you to write that for grassroots thinking. This comrade culture. Seriously, I'm not playing. But yeah, I don't want to keep you too long. We can dabble a little bit more, but I know we should be wrapping.
So let's get into the elephant in the room. Cherie, go ahead.
What's the elephant in the room?
I texted you about it before I got here.
What was the? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm still lost. I know why you was late.
My hesitation was coming on because of
yeah, you okay, yeah, you were, and I was kind of like, you'll be fine. But I think I just was looking at some Virgo shit. I think that's why I wasn't even. I was like, he just on his Virgo because he was trying to like get the questions and stuff ahead of time and kind of be prepared. He was like, maybe next week. I'm like, oh, here he go, trying to have like the perfect thing. But me knowing you, I'm like, you're so spot on. Like when you know, like when you say. Like you know, you're good with your words and how to get your points across, and it may take you a moment. You may have to stop and do this, but I was very confident that you could answer the questions and things. I was like, you don't need to have everything pre-written, and you know, like it's in you.
Oh, so he wanted to prep, which I'm okay with prep.
No, for the specific topic.
Yeah.
For the specific topic. So let's get to it before we end. Let's get to the
Charlie stuff.
Oh, that one. Didn't somebody like lead a question about Charlie and Black Christians or something like that somewhere? So maybe you can answer that. And damn it, somebody put that back in the chat.
I guess I just wanted to know your overall thoughts because I do remember seeing you say something like, "I don't have a take" because I'm friends with you on Facebook, and I was like,
Here we go. Question, Nene. Do the Nene. No, I'm joking. Any thoughts of how some Christian Africans, Latinos, and others are tapped in with a figure like Charlie Kirk? It's bizarre to see some of the reactions. So maybe respond to that, but then go into the elephant, the white elephant.
Oh man. Okay. Boy, oh boy. Okay, so I'm gonna preface what I'm about to say with this is my opinion. I'm not saying this on behalf of anybody else. I'm saying this as an independent individual, not any of the institutions that I am affiliated with. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Thoughts and prayers to the family, to the children who will now grow up without a father. That is awful. My thoughts and prayers and my heart goes out to the family of the shooter who had to turn in their child. That's got to be devastating to have to turn your child into the feds. We're looking at two families that are broken up. I can't imagine their suffering and their pain in the aftermath of this awful event. Death is hard. Incarceration is awful. And there's no words. I don't have a critique about that. I don't have. It's just awful, and I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I pray for those two families and what they're going through in this moment. I can't even. Yeah, that's a real thing. It's not like clickbait. It's not, internet fodder. Like, this is real life, and we can't, which then speaks to a larger issue, right? Of like the US has a larger issue in regards to violence, the fetishization of violence, of like consuming violence, the lack of resources, mental health and otherwise, to deal with people's traumas. We also have a way that the media is weaponizing opinions, weaponizing narratives, and it's actually bolstering these dissenting voices against each other to create like this divide and conquer among the 99%. We're in a time where there's immense wealth inequality. People are suffering. Poverty is one of the top killers in the US. There are children that are starving, that are homeless. There are people that have hospital bills they cannot pay, people that are struggling to afford groceries. And yet we have this phenomena of violence that we just seen play out in a very real way. I think one of the larger issues is we have leadership that is doing like this major like psyop of creating confusion. Donald Trump is actively creating confusion and chaos. He's fanning the flames of like discontent, of fear, weaponizing the other, whether it be trans people, Black people, immigrant people, Muslim people, anybody who's not white, Christian, male, cis, heterosexual, all those other people become other and they become the enemy. People are hurting. And rather than bring people together, we're just like living in this hotbed of just turmoil. And we're like turning in on each other. Charlie Kirk, God rest his soul, claimed to be Christian and advocate for Christian values on one hand, but on the other hand, is speaking down on people and is demonizing people and dehumanizing people and perpetuating narratives that are harmful to vulnerable people. To me, that is deplorable. It is despicable. There's no excuse for it. It's inexcusable. That doesn't mean that he deserves to die. Charlie Kirk was a white Christian nationalist friendly with fascists. That does not mean to me that he deserves to die for being a fascist, nor do I want to die for being a socialist or a Christian or a Black man. What I find appalling in this particular moment, and I wrote this post on social media, I said, seeing the very same politicians who practice, enable, and support violence against Palestinians, immigrants, trans people, and Black people now say that there's no place for violence in America. It's performative, it's contradictory, and it's gross. The US is a death-dealing empire who has the nerve to act oblivious to its own evils. So when I see Joe Biden or AOC or Bernie Sanders or Trump, or name a politician, when I see them go and name violence and political violence and say there's no place for it, yet they continue to support Israel in their campaign of genocide and bombing Palestinian people, I call hypocrisy. It's nonsense. That's political violence just as much as Charlie Kirk was political violence. But one is okay because one's a white guy and he's Christian. So this is awful. We need to be up in arms about that. What about Trey Reed, who was just hung on his campus? That's political violence too. What about thousands and thousands of people that are starving to death? That can't afford health care, that can't have a place to live. That's political violence too. It's violent through policy. I was watching on Instagram the other day, there was a clip of a news anchor, I believe it might have been Fox, and he was basically saying that if unhoused people refuse to receive services, get care and treatment, they should be put down through lethal injection or something. That's violent. And speaking to Charlie Kirk, there's this whole notion that he was engaging in civil discourse. That was not civil. He was spewing hatred and violence through his speech. He was enabling, supporting violence against marginalized, vulnerable people. So what happened to Charlie Kirk is awful. I also am not celebrating. I refuse to celebrate his death. I refuse to celebrate slaughter. I'm also not going to mourn Charlie Kirk either, because from what I didn't know about him until he passed. But from the little clips I've seen, the things he said about people from groups that I am near to my heart, be it trans, queer, Black, immigrant, Muslim, Palestinian, the awful things he said about people that I care about, he's not worth mourning to me. So I will not dance on his grave, nor will I mourn his death. But I do pray for all of us that we learn from this and build power, that we mourn together the loss of humanity amongst ourselves, that we are turning on each other. Violence, this phenomena of violence that we're witnessing, it's like it's very quickly become like this like political entertainment circus. Meanwhile, people are starving. Wages are going down, staying the same. Rates for rent and everything else is going up. And we're arguing about this clown. We need to actually look at the circumstances that are producing this clown. We need to look at the circumstances that are producing this sense of like white replacement. The ruling class is like laughing all the way to the bank. And I say it's time for a revolution. We need to build power, collectively organize, and we need to fight for collective liberation. Everything else is a distraction, including this clown. God rest his soul.
So thank you for that. You actually made me text my sister, ML. ML, we talk often, study groups together, known each other for years, but we have a conversation around her work, around abolishing the death penalty. And I've heard of line before. In effort to save Black folks, and this is a political fight, obviously, on the death penalty, she would also be against the death penalty for a white racist who on death row. And I'm wondering if these conversations should be in the same space outside of the emotional responses to what's happening and all these other things. So again, that's one thing. But then I also think about the political context that predates Charlie and Charlie's mother, that consequences are in this world, whether you want it or not. And political violence doesn't stop at the barrel of a gun. It also political psychic violence. So he was highly engaged in political violence, and he caught what people engage in political violence catch, as we all may do in some type of form or fashion. And I think, again, words, right? Today in one of our groups, one of our conversations, folks was talking about trust. I think it was trust. And then I was thinking about all of the tiers of trust. Like, you can trust somebody to do something. Like, you could trust somebody to be an asshole. I trust that you're going to be an asshole because I just, you know what I mean? You could be dependable to me. You could have care for me. Like, there's many ways. And I know this fucked up language that we're trying to use. But I wonder if, again, we're having a conversation around what this celebration and whatever else. What's the opposite? I don't know what the opposite of mourning, celebrating mourning. And then even as we say, like, pay respects, like, what does that look like? It is, you know. So yeah, I think this is an interesting conversation, interesting stands, and I appreciate for you being vulnerable and transparent.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about conversations of, again, as I said at the top, like, does that fit in that space of, like, this is why this is my line, because I don't want a society where this is whatever. And so
Yeah, it makes me think. It makes me think about. It makes me think about what Ta-Nehisi Coates was kind of saying when he was promoting his new book, The Message. He was saying apartheid is wrong, full stop. So whether you're a racist or you're or whatever thing that I may not agree with, maybe you're racist against Black people. Apartheid is still full stop. No, I don't care who. No, that's wrong. And he mentioned the death penalty. If I don't believe in the death penalty, that's if my ethics says the death penalty is wrong, it's wrong regardless of who, whatever the reason is. So yes, we actually need to trouble all that and actually figure that out to collectively. I spoke to my best friend as one of the people I said as consulted with before coming on here, and something so Marlon Richardson, aka Unlearn the World. He's a hip hop artist out of the Bay Area. He's an educator. He runs a nonprofit called Hip Hop for Change. So something Marlon told me was, look at what they did to Charlie Kirk. Now, what do you think they're going to do to you? That was something that's been sitting with me. Is if white people want to do that to white people, what is in store for the rest of us who are the enemies, quote unquote, considered enemies of the state? And that's something for us to like sit with and ponder. How do Black people, leftists, possibly queer people, immigrants, maybe Muslim, anything that's outside of the norm, right? How are we to move in these times? How do we keep each other safe? And going back to the book, we pray freedom. I think it's imperative that we use rituals, that we use prayer, that we use songs, that we use chants to like mourn amongst ourselves and mourn our martyrs. We mourn our dead. We like celebrate our wins. We celebrate our victories. And this idea of Geechee about going to Pittsburgh and doing like a church tour, I think would be really great to build power, and find our folks that like want to get into the movement and feel, because I think there's many people that maybe feel hopeless or maybe feel like nothing can happen. Like it's going to be what it's going to be, and it is what it is. But I think it's up to us to show them that something is possible, but we need people power. So yeah, let's do that. Let's actually get out there, touch hands, kiss babies. You know the saying, see the people, feed the people, and like collectively build power and organize. Cherie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just saying that I think too, it's interesting, like I said, to kind of hear you, because yeah, I think I'm just trying to grapple with like these different kind of lines too, because to me, like, I think you say like you're not mourning Charlie Kirk or whatever, but a lot of people would consider being like, well, you know, it's a horrible thing, or you know, I feel bad for his family, or I feel that that's like a form of mourning. But then back to what I think was kind of illustrated here is, it's not a mourning of him in particular. It's a mourning of like not liking that it has to get to this point of violence in a place. Like, even if you are a revolutionary and you know that violence is obviously gonna have to come in order to fight this specific revolution because of the violence that is, you know, being cast against us, that you, even though you know that it may be necessary, even if you may understand the process of organized violence, that does not necessarily mean you like death or violence. Like, in a sense where it's like, if you, like, in a sense, you're the type of person, like, there's, I mean, yeah, I think there's just like kind of layers to people where like, you could literally defend somebody or whatever that's being brutally attacked and end up having to kill that person in defense. And there's some people that would be like, oh, well, then that person should have died. Or like, he was trying to hurt my friend. He was trying to da-da-da-da-da. And then there's other people that's like, no, like, I still hate that had to happen. I do not mourn this person that was like attacking my friend or whatever. I do not, you know, I'm not like sad about them being gone because I know what I did was right and just. But there's, I think, like I said, yeah, there's two, I feel like, types of people, I guess, who, maybe me, I'm petty, so I'd be like, nah, they ain't need to be here, bro. Not everybody need to be here, but that's me. But I think like some people need to be here, some people don't. But I do think that, like I said, there is, and I know people talk about the whole nuance thing, but I think maybe that is a thing of nuance on the left too, that maybe we may be just missing. Like, I do think there are a lot of people that, like I said, they're misinterpreting things. Like I said, they're calling this political violence, but not realizing other forms of political violence. They're not thinking about the things that led up to this. They're not thinking about the fact that his stuff wasn't just a difference of opinion. It was a political action as well. So there's people that are actually missing the whole context and like, oh, I just feel bad. And that's one thing. But to me, it's like you understand the context of all of this, but as your personal belief, you just don't still, even though you understand it may be necessary for certain people to die, you don't necessarily like people being murdered.
I did not say any of what you just said. Those are your opinions and your thoughts from your mouth on this public platform. I do not condone. I do not co-sign.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I said I pray for Charlie's family. I pray for the shooter, his family. This is awful. This should not have happened.
Hey, listen. I'm gonna take y'all back to my old Bible, my Bible facilitation and study days, right? I'm gonna read y'all the Geechee Gullah Bible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Luke chapter 6, verse 60. Jesus said unto them, let the dead bury the dead and go organize people for the revolution. Amen.
Yeah, so I'll just leave it as being for the revolution. And I think that's what I think more of what I'm trying to talk about is like, yeah, you can mourn death happening and still be pro-revolution. I think that's what I'll leave it at. That's what I'll leave it at. Not to not put words in your mouth.
And we lead with love because I believe in the power of love.
I believe in the power of love. I know.
Yes. And just to nuance the idea of love, I did a talk with the incredible, the brilliant Dr. Joy James a few weeks back at the Word Is Change bookstore in Brooklyn. It was sponsored by Dream Defenders. And one of the things she talks about is revolutionary love. So she's problematizing even the whole concept of love to like this flattened hallmark. Love is in U.S. society is like this whole like romantic love. It's like this like very flowery, very hallmark, very cutesy love. So I think there's ways that we can have a more expansive view of what it means to love, a more expansive view of what it means to love radically, and what that then implies and how we show up in the world, what we do, what we don't do, coming from that agape love of humanity. So I believe in the power of love.
Well, we love you. How about that? Listen, I know this was an extended stay, and y'all didn't pay. But yeah, we appreciate that. And I mean, obviously, we should keep this conversation going. And yeah, if I could convince Cherie and AG to take the mantle after they finish. Well, I know we got a couple PE events, but after we finish some of these other things we got going on, that would be a dope moment.
I'm excited. That sounds energizing. Pittsburgh sounds dope. I've never been. It sounds like just a great opportunity. I think speaking again to Cherie's point of like why she was in a cult, of like the core thing I heard was family, and I was like, oh, belonging. That's what we need is meaning, purpose, belonging. If we can like offer that to the people, we can, oh man, we have a lot of work to do. And part of that is like creating these family units, the sense of home, the sense of belonging in movement. So people see themselves reflected and want to be there and stay for the long haul and raise their children. As a new director of Sunday School, Judson Memorial Church, bring your kids to my program and we can raise them up to be revolutionaries and love warriors doing the righteous work of justice.
Ashe. Amen.
Cherie not reading the chat, private chat. She just laughing and just.
What am I supposed to? Oh, you put something in the chat. Oh, take the guest out. Oh, okay. Sorry. It's a long day. My bad. So I'm just like, what's about
And then
to
she read it out loud. Oh my gosh. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So it's too late. My bad. I'm sorry, Geechee. Very unprofessional. I'm sorry. But yes, go get We Pray Freedom. Right now I just got it on ebook. I'm excited to read and amp up my revolutionary spirituality to do the ministry, to do my ministry. And speak a word to the people. So yeah, thank you so much, Steff Reed. I really do appreciate you bringing this discussion and nuance. Sorry for trying to interpret your stuff live and maybe misquoting you. But yeah, definitely, I think I'm pretty clear on kind of where you're at, and is dope to, like I said, have this discussion. And thank you for speaking a word to me as a cultural worker, as always. And yeah, anything coming up, Geechee, from you?
Well, we're just taking the guests out, so peace.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, we're just taking Steff out. Okay, gotcha.
Good to see you, bro.
Bye, Steff. Thank you. Sorry.
All right, yeah. Now wrap up.
I know I'm off. Sorry, it's late, and I didn't sleep a lot last night.
Well, yeah. Any quick reflections before we wrap up? Thank y'all for tuning in for this extended conversation. Yeah. Anything you got?
Yeah, just the cultural workers got something to say. Just preparing for this show, inviting people, sending emails, get your tickets. Y'all that don't live in remember, this is a process for the entire collective. So people that don't live in Atlanta, you can still go to the website and give donation to if you're able to help the process of the show and everything be put up. And you can also tell your friends and family that may live in Atlanta as well about it. So yeah, and the better we're able to kind of show up and build from this, we'll be able to oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, I was looking at that comment, my bad. But yeah, the more that we're able to, show up and really show out this round, the better chances, of it being brought other places. Sorry, y'all, I'm just tired and dehydrated. But yeah, that's all as far as coming up on my end. I guess I'll be at Curb Fest this weekend. And what else you got, Geechee?
Can I give everyone in the chat $1? No. Yeah, so this month, the 30th, Brian Coble will be in town talking about Hubert Harrison at Create ATL West Atlanta. He'll be in conversation with myself and Datrice here, event hosted by BAP Atlanta and CMB. And then the following week on Morehouse campus, we will have Jennifer Black having a conversation around Beneath the Mountain with her and Mumia edited this book, with a couple Morehouse students participating, Spellman and Clark. So it'll be a AUC event next month on the 30th, October the 30th. So until then, y'all stay tuned. We really appreciate y'all staying longer. Make sure you keep the conversation going in the chat. I feel like this might be a continuous conversation in the chat. So we'll see y'all soon, and thank y'all. Here we go.